Imagine sitting at your kitchen table under the harsh glare of a single overhead bulb, sorting through a dusty coffee can of faded copper coins your grandfather left behind you. Pick up a worn 1948 Lincoln, sent your thumb running over the familiar profile of Honest Abe, turning it to the reverse side, expecting the usual wheat stalks, and right there beneath the bow something completely impossible makes your heart stop beating, because this isn't just an ordinary Philadelphia strike that bought a loaf of bread 70 years ago. This is the absolute holy grail of modern numismatics, a phantom error piece so unfathomably rare and violently coveted by billionaire collectors that a single verified specimen in pristine condition could rewrite your entire family tree forever and hand you a check for $1.1 million cash. Now, before you dismiss this as the wild daydream of an overactive imagination, listen very closely to what is happening right now in high-end auction houses across Manhattan and Geneva. Ordinary people, everyday blue-collar workers just like you, are walking into local coin shops with jars of pocket change, expecting pocket change, and walking out with life-altering fortunes that buy houses, land, and generational security. We are living through a historic golden age of numismatic discovery where forgotten jars in attics and overlooked rolls from bank vaults are yielding treasures hiding in plain sight for decades, and the 1948 no-mint mark wheat cent sits right at the epicenter of this modern treasure rush, whispering a dangerous, tantalizing secret that mainstream collectors are desperate to keep quiet. To understand why this specific coin commands a price tag that rivals luxury supercars and downtown real estate, you have to transport yourself back to the chaotic industrial heartbeat of post-World War II America. In 1948, the Philadelphia Mint was a roaring monster of steam-driven presses and exhausted machinery cranking out pennies by the absolute billion day and night, with tired workers pushing equipment past its absolute physical limits to satisfy a booming economy hungry for small change. But amidst that deafening roar of metal on metal, something went cataclysmically wrong deep inside the stamping chamber, something so astronomically rare that quality control inspectors completely missed it, and a tiny handful of experimental or deeply flawed planchets escaped the mint doors and vanished into the swirling ocean of American commerce. Let us look closer at the sheer physical mechanics of how a $1,000,000 coin is born, because understanding the minting process separates the daydreamers from the serious hunters who actually cash out big checks. In 1948, the standard Lincoln cent was composed of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, weighing precisely 3.11 grams, struck with massive tonnage by hardened steel dies that transferred every microscopic detail of Victor David Brenner's iconic design onto the planchet. But when a die shifts ever so slightly during a high-speed strike, or when a foreign contaminant gets wedged between the dies, the resulting anomaly creates an effect that sends coin specialists into an absolute frenzy. Think about the sheer impossibility of survival for a moment. Out of the billions of pennies minted in Philadelphia in 1948, almost all of them were subjected to the relentless grinder of everyday circulation. They passed through greasy cash registers, bought chewing gum at corner stores, sat in copper jars on dressers, and eventually met their fate in bank sorting machines, where worn and damaged coins were routinely pulled and melted down into oblivion for scrap copper value. For a 1948 error sent to survive decades of heavy circulation without being recognized, worn down, or destroyed is already a statistical miracle bordering on fiction. Ask yourself right now as you listen to my voice, where is your coin jar sitting right this second? Is it gathering dust in the back of your closet, or sitting in a mason jar on your workbench, holding a sleeping giant that could pay off your mortgage, fund your children's college education, and set you free from the daily grind forever? Because the truth is that $1,000,000 coins do not announce themselves with flashing lights or sirens. They hide in plain sight, disguised as ordinary pocket change, waiting for someone with sharp eyes and a relentless hunger for discovery to pick them up and look closer. Let us dive deeper into the microscopic details that separate a worthless pocket piece from a museum-grade masterpiece that makes auctioneers sweat under their collars. When examining a 1948 Lincoln cent, you need to train your eyes to scan for the subtle ghosts in the metal. Look at the date digits 1948. Look at the crispness of the 9 and the 8. Do you see any doubling in the loops, any ghosting, shadowing, or separation lines that scream out mechanical or true hub doubling? Examine the legendary motto, "In God We Trust," running along the upper rim, where a tiny shift in the die can create a dramatic widening of the letters, known to advanced collectors as a major double die variety. And do not stop at the obverse, because the real financial fireworks often happen on the reverse side, where the twin stalks of wheat frame the lettering 1 cent and United States of America look obsessively for repunched mint marks or dramatic die cracks running across the wheat stalks like jagged lightning bolts. Though remember, our primary target here is the elusive no-mint mark Philadelphia issue, which relies on pristine surface preservation and phenomenal strike definition rather than a Denver or San Francisco letter to drive its astronomical value. Consider the grading scale, the holy grail of the coin world, the Sheldon scale running from 1 to 70, where a single numerical jump from a mint state 65 to a mint state 67 can literally swing the value of a rare coin from a few $100s to hundreds of thousands of dollars, or even past the $1 million milestone when combined with exceptional cameo contrast or a one-of-a-kind error pedigree. Encapsulation by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC is the ultimate crucible where dreams are either validated or crushed into dust. Picture the scene inside a secure grading room where an elite authenticator slides a magnifying loupe across the fiery orange surfaces of your 1948 cent checking for microscopic cleaning hairlines, rim dings, or environmental damage that could instantly slaughter the value of your piece. Every second ticks by in agonizing silence as they measure the luster, the strike sharpness, and the original mint bloom until finally the verdict is rendered and your coin is sealed forever in a protective, sonically welded plastic slab bearing a high-grade certification number that sends shockwaves through the collecting community. We live in a world where people spend billions of dollars on lottery tickets knowing the odds are stacked overwhelmingly against them, while ignoring the literal fortune sitting right under their noses in coin jars, inheritance boxes, and bankroll searches. The 1948 wheat cent is a physical piece of American history minted during the dawning of the Cold War, an era of unprecedented industrial might and cultural shift-making. Every single well-preserved specimen a tangible artifact of a bygone era that collectors are fighting tooth and nail to own. Let us break down the exact game plan you need to deploy tonight to start your own $1 million hunt. Step 1 involves raiding every single coin jar, piggy bank, and inherited collection you can lay your hands on. Do not discriminate based on appearance, because heavily toned or dirty coins often hide the most pristine original surfaces beneath years of natural oxidation, which professional conservation experts can safely remove without destroying the delicate underlying mint luster. Step 2 requires upgrading your toolkit. Invest in a high-quality 10x or 20x triplet loupe and a bright LED desk lamp that illuminates every contour of the coin without washing out the details. Lay down a soft velvet or felt mat to protect your potential $1 million discovery from accidental drops or rim damage, because a single careless scratch on a high-grade specimen can instantly erase 6 figures of value before you even have a chance to get it authenticated. Step 3 is mastering the art of sorting by decade and mint mark, separating the copper wheat cents minted between 1909 and 1958 from the modern zinc and copper-plated memorial and shield cents that flood everyday circulation. Pay hyper attention to the transitional years immediately following World War II, when mint conditions were chaotic and errors were slipping past inspection desks with alarming frequency, making 1948 a prime year for major uncatalogued anomalies. Step 4 demands that you study high-resolution auction archives from major houses like Heritage Auction, Stax Bowers, and Great Collections. Look at the exact photographic markers of authenticated error coins and high-grade mint state specimens. Burn those images into your memory so that the moment an unusual double impression or striking anomaly crosses your field of view, your brain triggers an immediate adrenaline response, telling you that you have found something extraordinary. Imagine the moment you pull that coin from the roll or jar. Take a deep breath, feel your pulse racing in your throat, and realize that you are holding something potentially worth more than most people earn in 10 years of hard labor. That visceral, electrifying rush of discovery is what drives the numismatic community forward, turning ordinary people into legendary treasure hunters whose names are forever etched into the annals of coin collecting lore. Think about the sheer scale of the American numismatic market, where wealthy investors and passionate hobbyists pour hundreds of millions of dollars annually into rare coins, treating them not just as a hobby, but as a premier alternative asset class that consistently outperforms traditional stocks and bonds during times of economic uncertainty. Copper and gold remain the ultimate safe havens, and rare error coins combine the intrinsic value of precious metals with the exponential multiplier of historical scarcity and artistic demand. Now let us return to the central mystery of our story, the 1948 no-mint mark wheat cent targeting that mythical $1.1 million valuation. What are the exact ingredients that push a coin into that stratosphere? It requires a convergence of absolute perfection in grade flawless original red copper luster with zero carbon spots or environmental damage, combined with a dramatic double die or major mint error that has never been documented before in numismatic literature, creating a unique specimen that every advanced collector in the world is forced to bid against each other to acquire. Can you picture the electric atmosphere of a packed auction room in Chicago or New York when a legendary rarity crosses the block, the auctioneer's chant rising in pitch as the bids leap by $50,000 at a time, wealthy collectors sitting in the front rows flashing discreet paddle signals while phone bidders from across the globe fight tooth and nail through representatives until the final hammer drops at a jaw-dropping sum that makes national headlines and cements the coin's status as a modern legend. That could be your coin sitting in that dusty jar right now, waiting for you to wipe away the decades of grime and recognize its true magnificent worth. The universe has a funny way of hiding its greatest treasures in the most ordinary places, rewarding those who refuse to accept things at face value and who possess the curiosity and determination to look deeper than everyone else around them. We are talking about the legendary 1952 mint mark wheat Lincoln cent, a coin shrouded in numismatic mystery, whispers of multi-million-dollar valuations, and the ultimate holy grail for anyone who has ever dumped a jar of pocket change onto a kitchen table and wondered what treasures might be hiding in plain sight. Most people walk right past these things, tossing them into the console of their car or letting them collect dust in a glass jar, completely oblivious to the fact that they might be casually carrying the keys to absolute financial freedom. Let that sink in for a moment. Right now, somewhere out there in the vast circulation of America's monetary system, buried deep inside old coffee cans, forgotten attic lockboxes, and dusty coin albums, sits a piece of copper so elusive, so intensely sought after, that elite collectors and high-rolling auction houses would practically tear down doors to get their hands on it. The sheer thrill of the hunt is enough to make your heart hammer against your ribs, because numismatic history is paved with legendary tales of ordinary people, grandparents, teenagers, casual yard sale hunters, who stumbled upon a microscopic anomaly, a faint letter stamped into the metal, and walked away with fortunes that changed their family trees forever. To understand why this specific coin commands such mind-bending attention, we have to travel back to 1952. A post-war America surging with industrial power, manufacturing booms, and daily commerce where pennies traded hands by the billions to buy a loaf of bread, a comic book, or a gallon of gas. At the San Francisco Mint, the presses were roaring day and night, punching out millions of wheat cents bearing that tiny, iconic letter S just below the date. Out of those massive millions minted, the overwhelming majority were standard, everyday currency, worth a couple of cents in copper melt value, maybe a quarter to a dollar if it rolled out of the mint in pristine, uncirculated condition. But the coin world is a universe governed by freak accidents, human error, and extreme rarities that slip through the cracks of quality control, creating anomalies so valuable they defy all logic. Picture the scene inside the San Francisco Mint facility back in the autumn of 1952. The air smells of hot oil, heavy machinery, and raw metal. Giant hydraulic presses are pounding down with tons of pressure onto copper planchets, stamping the likeness of Abraham Lincoln onto the obverse and the iconic twin wheat stalks onto the reverse. Amidst the deafening roar of production, dies wear down, mint workers make subtle adjustments under flickering fluorescent lights, and every once in a while, something goes catastrophically, miraculously wrong in the best possible way. A misplaced punch, a repunched mint mark, an experimental composition, or a dramatic strike error happens on the floor, and that single misaligned coin gets swept up, mixed into a massive canvas bag of millions of others, loaded onto an armored truck, and shipped off into the wild, waiting for someone with a sharp eye and an adventurous spirit to finally set it free. This is where the dream takes over, because when you talk about targeting values reaching up to $1,200,000, you are stepping into the absolute stratosphere of high-end numismatics. You are talking about the rarities that make headline news across the globe, the kind of legendary status usually reserved for 1909 VDB proofs or 1943 copper pennies. Every single time you rifle through an old inheritance, every time you rifle through a bank-wrapped roll of pennies from a local coin shop, or every time you stop to inspect the change rolling out of a gas station machine, you are playing a lottery where the ticket was already bought and paid for decades ago by your ancestors. The only question left is whether you possess the knowledge, the patience, and the sharp vision to spot the golden needle hidden inside a mountain of copper hay. Let us break down the anatomy of the 1952 South Wheat Center so you know precisely what you are hunting for when the lights go down and the magnifying glass comes out. First, flip the coin over to the front, the obverse side featuring the stoic, bearded profile of the 16th President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln, facing right with the word liberty proudly stamped to his left and the sacred motto "I in God we trust" arching right across the top rim. Right below the shoulder fold, you will find the year of minting, 1952, and tucked tightly into the field right underneath that date is the small, crisp mint mark letter S, signifying that this specific piece of copper was born in the legendary San Francisco facility. Now, flip it around to the reverse side, where two stalks of Durham wheat curve gracefully up the left and right rims, framing the bold denominations 1 cent and United States of America, with the grand national motto E pluribus unum hovering directly above. To the untrained eye, every single one of these coins looks identical, blending into a monotonous sea of brown copper. But the true coin hunter knows that the devil is in the microscopic details, in the subtle doubling of letters, the razor-thin die cracks, the grease-filled die strikes that obliterate numbers, or the miraculous deep cameo proof-like finishes that occasionally escape the strict oversight of mint inspectors. When a coin hits the absolute peak of condition grading, what the professionals call mint state 67 or higher, the surface transforms from a dull brown into a blazing, fiery red mint luster, completely free of blemishes, hairline scratches, or contact marks. It looks as though it was struck yesterday, trapped in a time capsule for over 70 years, preserving a pristine flash of 1952 brilliance that money literally cannot buy unless you are willing to outbid billionaires at a major public auction. Think about the sheer journey of that coin. In 1952, someone might have received it as change for a nickel soda at a corner diner in San Francisco, dropped it into their coat pocket, walked down to the cable cars, and carried it across the country, losing it down the floorboards of a dusty farmhouse in the Midwest. Decades pass. Generations come and go. Wars are fought, technologies are born, the internet changes the world, and that tiny copper coin sits quietly in the dark, waiting for the exact second you decide to tip that jar over onto the velvet lining of your sorting tray. It is a cinematic thought, isn't it? That a tiny piece of metal could carry so much dormant potential, whispering a silent invitation across the decades, daring you to pick it up, flip it over, and inspect it under a bright LED light. The pursuit of high-value variants in Lincoln cent collecting has driven grown men and women to scour damp basements, negotiate with estate sale liquidators, and spend countless hours peering through illuminated loupes until their eyes water. Why? Because the payoff isn't just financial, though a 7-figure payday certainly alters the trajectory of a lifetime. It is the incomparable rush of discovery. It is that sudden, heart-stopping moment when your breath catches in your throat, your hands begin to tremble, and you realize that the coin sitting beneath your lens matches the description of a multi-million-dollar unicorn. It is the realization that out of the billions of coins minted, yours is the one that defied the odds, survived the melting pots, dodged the trash cans, and landed right in your hands. When we talk about targeting values reaching up to $1,200,000 for extreme top-tier rarities, we have to look at how the grading scale acts as a massive multiplier of wealth. A standard 1952 South Wheat Center in average circulated condition might be worth 5 cents to 10 cents. A neat keepsake, but hardly life-changing. Step it up to a solid uncirculated red specimen graded MS-65, and the value creeps up into the double digits. Push the boundaries of human preservation into the rarefied air of conditional rarity, where almost no other examples exist in pristine mint state 67 red or higher, and the economic landscape shifts entirely. Investors and institutional collectors step onto the battlefield, driving bids through the roof because they are not just buying a coin. They are buying the absolute finest known surviving monument to a specific year in American history. Consider the microscopic errors that send collectors into a frenzy. Repunched mint marks where the letter S was stamped twice into the die, creating a dramatic ghosted shadow beneath the primary letter. Die breaks that ripple across Lincoln's forehead like a bolt of lightning. Off-center strikes where the press missed the planchet by half a centimeter, leaving a crescent moon of blank copper. While the ultimate dream remains a pristine, flawless high-grade masterwork, every single anomaly tells a story of mechanical chaos on the mint floor, adding layers of intrigue, collectability, and skyrocketing market value to an already fascinating piece of numismatic history. Imagine the feeling of walking into a local coin shop or a massive national convention, sliding a small protective slab across the glass counter, and watching the resident expert lean in close, adjust their visor, go completely silent, and then look up at you with wide, disbelieving eyes. Imagine hearing those words. Do you have any idea what you are holding right now? That is the cinematic fantasy that drives this entire subculture. It is the ultimate treasure hunt of the modern age, where you don't need a map, a shovel, or a scuba suit. Just a keen eye, a healthy dose of patience, and a deep, burning passion for the hidden history resting inside everyday American currency. As you sit back and let these thoughts wash over you, look around your home with a completely different perspective. That jar of old change sitting on your shelf, that box of heirlooms handed down by a grandfather who worked at the docks, that random handful of copper you scooped out of a garage sale jar. Any one of them could be harboring the prize of a lifetime. The 1952 Mint Mark Wheat Lincoln cent isn't just a piece of old money. It is a ticking time bomb of potential, a microscopic masterpiece of industrial art, and a standing invitation to change your world forever. Keep your eyes sharp, keep your loop close, and never underestimate the staggering, life-changing power of what might be hiding right inside your pocket change. Picture this: you are standing right there in your kitchen under the harsh glow of the overhead light with a jar of dusty pocket change that has been sitting in the back of your closet for decades, and your fingers are sorting through the familiar copper weights of history, ignoring the dull thuds of common Lincoln cents, when suddenly your thumb catches on a date that sends a sudden jolt straight up your spine. 1973, a year that millions of pennies were minted, a year so common you would usually toss it right back into the jar without a second glance, except for one terrifying detail: there is no mint mark resting comfortably beneath that year, no little Denver D, no little San Francisco S, just a smooth, empty space of raw, polished copper staring back at you in the silence of the room, and in that exact heartbeat you realize your hands might just be holding a phantom, a ghost in the machine, a staggering numismatic anomaly that collectors whisper about in hushed tones because somewhere out there, tucked away in the sprawling chaos of American circulation, lies a mythical white whale, a coin so elusive, so intensely coveted it commands a price tag soaring up to a mind-boggling $1.3 million, and right now your heart is hammering against your ribs because you have to ask yourself the ultimate question: could this dull little disc of metal be the ticket to a life beyond your wildest dreams, or is it just another cruel trick of history whispering false hope into the dark? Think about the sheer scale of the United States Mint in the early 1970s, a roaring industrial machine churning out billions of coins to feed a nation caught in the throes of economic shifting, cultural revolutions, and endless pocket transactions, rolling out pennies by the truckload day in and day out, with thousands of massive steel presses slamming down with bone-crushing force, stamping out millions of identical copper profiles of Abraham Lincoln over and over again in a relentless, assembly line of monetary production where mistakes were not just discouraged, they were hunted down by rigorous quality control meant to keep the system pure and predictable. Yet in the shadows of that mechanical perfection, human error occasionally cracked the armor of mass manufacturing, creating chinks in the armor where legendary errors slipped past the watchful eyes of inspectors and tumbled out into the dark unknown of public commerce, waiting decades for an unsuspecting soul to stumble upon them in the dim light of everyday life. You can feel the tension tightening in the air as you lean closer to the lamp, squinting through a battered magnifying glass, trying desperately to separate ordinary wear and tear from the holy trinity of mint errors, because the devil is always in the details: the sharp strike of the lettering, the pristine fields behind Lincoln's shoulder, and the complete absence of that tiny stamped letter that separates a pocket change filler from a generational fortune that could wipe away every debt you have ever stressed over and buy you a kingdom of your own where you never have to check your bank account balance again, and every single time your breath fogs up the magnifying glass you wipe it away with a trembling thumb, refusing to blink for fear that you might miss the one microscopic marker that changes everything forever. Consider the journey of that coin before it landed in your hands, or your grandfather's old coffee tin, passing through thousands of anonymous fingers over 50 years, sliding across dirty gas station counters, resting in the cup holders of rusted-out pickup trucks, rolling deep into the dark corners of forgotten vending machines, and tumbling into the pockets of mailmen, teenagers, grandmothers, and factory workers who never once looked down at the copper resting against their thigh, unaware that they were carrying a lottery ticket worth more than a luxury estate, and yet somehow miraculously it survived. It survived the melting pots, it survived the scrap metal yards, it survived the ruthless tides of bank coin wrappings that routinely filter out the old and worn to feed the hungry jaws of the Federal Reserve shredders, staying hidden in plain sight, protected only by the sheer indifference of the millions who held it and threw it away without a second thought. The hunt for $1 million coin is not for the faint of heart. It is a psychological thriller played out in real time across kitchen tables and convention floors, where every collector knows the intoxicating rush of the chase and the crushing agony of a counterfeit or a common variety masquerading as a dream come true, because for every legendary discovery whispered about in magazine columns and online forums, there are thousands of heartbreaks where a hopeful finder learns their prize is just a post-mint modification or a simple, heavily worn common date, suffering from grease-filled die strikes that accidentally erased a mint mark or dulled the details into a deceptive blur. Yet that brutal reality only fuels the fire, driving millions of everyday people to tear open coin rolls, scour estate sales, and hold their breath every single time a handful of change drops onto a wooden tabletop. Imagine the moment of authentication, the terrifying stakes of walking into a high-end grading facility, sliding a small padded envelope across the counter to a hardened professional numismatist who holds the fate of your future in their gloved hands, watching their eyes scan the surface through a high-powered microscope, looking for the microscopic flow lines, the razor-sharp edges, and the unmistakable diagnostic markers that prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that this 1973 anomaly is the real deal, a genuine heavyweight champion of the coin world that commands instant respect and staggering valuations from elite investors, billionaire collectors, and museum curators who would wage bidding wars to secure such a magnificent artifact for their private vaults. We live in a world obsessed with quick fixes and lottery tickets, but there is something primordial and deeply thrilling about finding wealth hidden in the physical earth, or in this case, in the physical remnants of our national currency, handed down through the tactile poetry of physical cash. In an increasingly digital age where money is just an invisible number flashing on a glowing screen holding a physical piece of copper that could be worth a king's ransom, brings us back to the raw, visceral excitement of buried treasure and pirate maps, except the map is just your ordinary everyday pocket change, and the X marks the spot right there in the palm of your hand, waiting for you to notice what everyone else walked right past. Let us dive deeper into the labyrinth of mint anomalies, because understanding what makes a 1973 cent potentially priceless requires looking into the secret history of coin production, where human error meets industrial might during a turbulent decade marked by sweeping changes in coinage compositions across the globe, as the United States Mint experimented with aluminum, bronze, and various metallic alloys to combat rising metal costs, creating an environment ripe for accidental Minting mistakes where experimental planchets meant for foreign governments or special trial strikes could easily slip into the regular bins and get stamped with standard Lincoln cent dies, creating an illicit chimeric masterpiece that defies all logic and standard operating procedures. Picture the chaotic floor of the Philadelphia Mint in 1973, the deafening roar of massive mechanical presses pounding rhythmically, shaking the concrete floor as operators scrambled to keep the massive hoppers fed with copper-plated blanks while supervisor eyes scanned for misaligned strikes and double denominations. Yet in the deafening noise and frantic pace, mistakes happened. Boxes of scraps were mixed up, experimental blanks were dropped into active hoppers, and unique numismatic ghosts were born into the world unnoticed, slipping out the heavy loading dock doors locked securely inside armored bags bound for commercial banks across the eastern seaboard and beyond, beginning an incredible decades-long odyssey across the American landscape. Feel the weight of history pressing down on your fingertips as you turn the coin over and over again, examining the reverse side where the majestic lines of the Lincoln Memorial stand tall, etched into the copper by Frank Gasparo with meticulous geometric precision, looking for any sign of doubling, any ghosting of the steps, any weird anomalies in the designer initials FG that would signal a double die obverse or reverse pushing this coin past ordinary status and catapulting it into the stratosphere of ultra-rare errors that drive hardcore collectors into a feeding frenzy at major auctions, where 6- and 7-figure bids are tossed around like pocket change by eccentric tycoons hunting for the ultimate crown jewel to complete their legendary collections. The psychology of the collector is a fascinating and obsessive beast, driven by the thrill of the hunt, the burning desire to find what others missed, and the profound romantic notion that greatness can be hiding anywhere, even in the dirtiest, most overlooked places imaginable. Because when you hold that 1973 cent up to the light, you are not just looking at a piece of metal, you are looking at a narrative, a microdrama of industrial slip-ups and miraculous survivals that span over half a century, linking the turbulent politics and cultural shifts of the 1970s directly to your modern living room in a way that feels almost supernatural. Think about the sheer improbability of your current position out of the billions of coins minted that year, out of the countless trillions of transactions that have occurred since Gerald Ford was in the White House and the Vietnam War was coming to a close. This specific little piece of copper managed to survive the relentless culling of the modern banking system, winding up in your possession right here, right now, as if guided by an invisible hand, demanding that you pay attention to the silent whispers of history resting quietly in your palm. Let us break down the exact steps you need to take right now in this very room to verify your discovery without ruining the coin or destroying its potential numismatic value, because amateur cleaning is the #1 killer of coin value, turning a $1 million masterpiece into a worthless scrubbed piece of scrap metal worth no more than face value. So listen closely, do not touch the surfaces with your bare fingers, hold only the extreme edges between your thumb and forefinger like a sacred artifact. Never use soap, water, baking soda, or a toothbrush, no matter how dirty or tarnished it looks, because that original mint luster and natural toning are the holy grail of high-grade preservation, and collectors will instantly spot and brutally penalize any amateur tampering with immediate suspicion and disgust. Instead, grab a proper 10 times or 20 times jeweler loupe, or set up a digital microscope that lets you project the coin onto a screen, allowing you to inspect every microscopic detail of the date, the lettering, and the fields with surgical precision, looking for the unmistakable marks of a true mint error rather than post-mint damage caused by a deliberate filing down or a harsh scrape from a stray nail or a cement sidewalk, because people have been faking coin errors for as long as coin collecting has existed, and the numismatic community is armed with sophisticated forensic tools designed to spot fake alterations from a mile away, protecting the integrity of the market while keeping the dream alive for honest, everyday hunters. Imagine the absolute silence of the room as you finally confirm every single diagnostic marker lining up perfectly. The strike is crisp, the edges are squared off, the fields are free of suspicious scratches, and that missing mint mark is clean as a whistle with no signs of tool marks or chemical erasure, confirming that this is an untouched, authentic mint error straight from the Philadelphia presses of 1973, waiting for its moment in the spotlight after 50 long years of silent circulation, hiding in the background of American history, while empires rose and fell and everyday life marched on without a single soul realizing the staggering wealth sitting right beneath their noses. The path from a kitchen table discovery to $1 million payout is a high-stakes journey that requires nerves of steel and absolute discretion, because once you hold an authenticated Holy Grail numismatic treasure, you become a target for opportunists and must navigate the secretive world of elite auction houses like Heritage Auction Stacks Bowers or Sotheby's, where rare coins are treated like fine art and auctioned off to deep-pocketed investors who view million-dollar pennies not as pocket change but as blue-chip alternative assets capable of hedging against inflation while offering the ultimate bragging rights in elite collecting circles across the globe. Picture the glittering lights of the auction room, the rhythmic pounding of the gavel, and the sharp intakes of breath from the crowd as lot number 1 is announced, bringing forth the legendary 1973 major mint error, with no mint mark, graded MS65 or higher by professional certification services, sparking an immediate bidding war between anonymous phone bidders and front-row billionaires, driving the price past the 500,000 mark, then $1 million, and finally stopping at a jaw-dropping $1.3 million, securing its place in the history books and transforming the lucky finder from an ordinary person worrying about bills into an absolute legend of the numismatic world, whose name will be whispered with awe at coin conventions for generations to come. Think about what that kind of money actually means for your life right now: the total eradication of financial anxiety, the ability to walk into any car dealership and pay cash for the vehicle of your dreams, the power to buy a sprawling home tucked away in the mountains or by the ocean without ever having to look at a mortgage rate or sweat over a monthly payment, the freedom to travel the globe, support your family in ways you never thought possible, and live life entirely on your own terms, all because you took a chance on a jar of dusty pocket change and looked closer when everyone else walked away. Yet even if this specific coin turns out to be a common variety, a well-circulated piece of everyday copper worth nothing more than its 1 cent face value, the true magic was never just the money itself. It was the adrenaline rush, the electrifying realization that history is tactile, that we are all walking through a vast landscape of hidden treasures waiting to be discovered by anyone patient enough to look, observant enough to notice, and bold enough to believe that a life-changing miracle can happen right here in the quiet moments of ordinary life. So do not put the magnifying glass down just yet. Keep sorting, keep searching, keep looking through the jars, the boxes, the coffee tins, and the forgotten jars of change, because somewhere out there in the sprawling expanse of American circulation, the phantom 1973 cent is still waiting for its rightful owner to lift it to the light, read the signs, and claim a fortune that transcends time itself, changing everything forever in a single unforgettable moment of pure numismatic destiny. Today, we are hunting for the ultimate ghost of modern numismatics. We are tracking the legendary, elusive, and hyper-valuable 1970 Lincoln cent with no mint mark, alongside its infamous cousin that can fetch an astonishing king's ransom. We are diving deep into the shadows of the Denver and Philadelphia mints during one of the most chaotic eras in coin production, uncovering the exact markers, the hidden anomalies, and the pulse-pounding reality of what it takes to find a modern treasure worth up to $1,400,000. Picture the year 1970. The world was changing rapidly. Music was electric, society was shifting, and deep inside the sprawling facilities of the United States Mint, presses were slamming down with relentless fury. Pennies were pouring out by the literal ton. Back then, the Philadelphia Mint did not stamp a letter P on its circulating coinage. If a cent came out of Philadelphia, it was smooth, clean beneath the date, and utterly bare of any mint mark. Denver, on the other hand, proudly stamped a tiny D. San Francisco produced proofs with an S. Normally, this system is as predictable as clockwork. But 1970 was different. It was a pressure cooker of production demands, double dies, and die swaps. And out of that mechanical chaos emerged errors so bizarre, so astronomically rare, that they completely rewrote the rulebooks of coin collecting. Let us address the elephant in the room right away. When people hear about a 1970 penny worth a staggering fortune, their minds instantly race to the holy grail of modern errors. The 1969's double die obverse, or the legendary 1943 copper cent that commands millions at elite auction houses. But within the specific family of 1970 coinage, a unique storm of varieties occurred, most notably the 1970s small date versus large date varieties, and the elusive, mythical reporting of transitional and experimental errors. Let us slow down and look at what happens when a die is carved. In 1970, the San Francisco Mint accidentally used an old master hub intended for proof coins to strike business strike Lincoln cents for circulation. This created the infamous 1970s small date. If you find a 1970s penny where the date looks slightly smaller, where the numbers are crisp, and where the top of the number 7 is noticeably higher than the 0, your heart should start pounding. Why? Because a high-grade specimen of that specific variety can command tens of thousands of dollars. But that is just the tip of the iceberg. Imagine running your thumb across a coin that feels just a fraction too heavy. You bring out your digital scale. You hold your breath as the numbers tick upward. It registers 3.1 grams instead of 2.5. Your breath catches in your throat. Could it be? Could it be a transitional error struck on a leftover blank from the previous year? Or an experimental composition meant for testing? This is where the dream transforms into an obsessive, beautiful reality. This is the exact moment a normal Tuesday night turns into the night your life changes forever. Let us break down the anatomy of the hunt. You cannot just stare at a pile of pennies and hope for the best. You need to think like a professional grader, like a forensic investigator of metallic history. You need a good magnifying loupe, preferably 10 times or 20 times magnification, and a bright, angled light source. Start with your accumulation jars. Grab that old coffee can filled with pennies your grandfather left behind. Dump them out. Listen to the satisfying cascade of copper sliding across your table. Separate every single coin by year. Ignore the modern zinc shield pennies for now. You are looking for the warm, rich, heavy brown and red glow of copper coins minted before 1982. You find a 1970. Your pulse spikes. You pick it up with your fingertips, keeping your greasy thumbs away from the delicate fields. You look right below the year. Is there a mint mark? If you are holding a 1970 coin minted in Philadelphia, there will be nothing there. Just smooth, uninterrupted field space beneath the bold digits of 1970. Now look closer. Grab your loupe. Bring the coin into sharp focus. You are not just looking at the date. You are scanning the lettering of In God We Trust and Liberty. Look at the edges of the letters. Do you see a shadow? Do you see a distinct, clean split where the metal seems to have doubled during the striking process? A true double die obverse on a 1970 issue turns an ordinary piece of pocket change into a heavyweight contender in the numismatic arena. The mechanics of a double die are fascinating. Back in 1970, the hub had to press into the working die multiple times to transfer all the intricate details of Lincoln's profile and the lettering. If the die slipped just a fraction of a millimeter between squeezes, the impression was stamped twice. The mint workers did not catch it. The QC inspectors missed it. Millions of coins might have been struck before anyone noticed, but for many major errors, only a handful survived the fiery gauntlet of circulation and time. That is why they are scarce. That is why wealthy investors are willing to drop life-changing fortunes to secure them. They are tiny, metallic ghosts of human error. Think about the sheer improbability of it all. Out of the billions of coins produced by the United States government, yours, the one sitting right between your fingers, might be the single survivor of a catastrophic machinery slip. It survived the counting machines at the bank. It survived the heavy bags tossed onto armored trucks. It survived being spent at a gas station in 1974, slipped into a tip jar, shoved into a parking lot change slot, and ignored by 1,000 different people who lacked the vision to look closer. That is the true magic of coin collecting. It is the ultimate equalizer. You do not need $1 million to start. You just need curiosity, patience, and a sharp eye. Billionaires and everyday workers hunt through the exact same rolls of coins from the bank. The coin does not care who owns it. It only reveals its secrets to the person patient enough to look. Let us talk about condition, because in the elite stratosphere of high-value coins, condition is everything. You can find a genuine 1970 variety error, but if it has been dragged across concrete, gouged by a screwdriver, or cleaned with harsh household chemicals, its value plummets like a stone. Collectors want pristine preservation. They want the original mint luster, that cartwheel sheen that flashes across the surface when you tilt it under a lamp. They want chocolate brown surfaces untouched by corrosion, or blazing red copper that looks like it was minted this morning instead of over half a century ago. If you suspect you have found something extraordinary, something with wild doubling, strange weight anomalies, or missing mint marks where there should be variations, do not clean it. Never, under any circumstances, clean a coin. Cleaning leaves microscopic hair line scratches that professional grading services like PCGS or NGC can spot instantly from across the room. To a serious collector, a cleaned coin is a damaged coin, instantly stripped of its collector mojo and value. Instead, place it gently into a protective 2x2 cardboard flip or a plastic coin capsule. Treat it like fragile glass, because in a very real sense, you might be holding a winning lottery ticket that never expires. Imagine the phone call to your family. Imagine walking into a premier auction house in New York or Dallas, placing your little cardboard flip onto a velvet tray, and watching the lead authenticator lean in close through their desk microscope. Watch their eyes widen. Watch the absolute silence fall over the room as they realize what you have brought them. They pull out reference books. They compare serial numbers, die markers, and strike characteristics. And then, they look up at you with a completely different expression. The air in the room shifts. The stakes become real. This is the dream that drives thousands of treasure hunters across the country every single night. They sit at kitchen tables draped in green felt, poring over rolls from the bank, scanning auction catalogs, and searching for that one elusive anomaly. They are modern-day pirates, not sailing the open ocean with swords and maps, but navigating the subtle, hidden geography of pocket change and mint records. The 1970 no-mint Mark Lincoln cent and its associated error families represent a golden window in American numismatic history. They remind us that perfection is an illusion, and that human error, in its most mechanical and accidental form, can create lasting beauty and immense value.